It's Wednesday, my dudes. That means it's time to update our rest of the season rankings. Do us a huge favor. Drop a like if you enjoy this video every week. And make sure you're subscribed because we're trying to get to 40,000 subscribers before the season's over, and you can help us do that. We appreciate you guys so much for being with us along the ride. Here we go. S tier for running backs. McCaffrey, Taylor, and Bijan Robinson. Nathan and I both have these guys as our top three. We have them in the exact same order, CMC, JT, and then Bijan. CMC would be like a wide receiver 1 right now if he were just a receiver, not to mention the running back upside. Jonathan Taylor had a slow week. Bijan Robinson had a modest week. Doesn't change anything with these three guys. These are the three guys that if you have them on your team, they could potentially win you the league by themselves. They are clear tier above everybody else that's starting in the A tier.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs at the top of the A tier. Nothing has changed here either. He's kind of been so-so, honestly, before and after the bye. 7 and then 36, which is awesome, and then 5. So being just not super consistent, but obviously the elite upside is there. He's still awesome. You got Devon Achane, who had a modest week against Baltimore's defense, and I think that defense is starting to be a little bit underrated. They're really starting to come on, so I'd expect Achane to bounce back and have, better weeks ahead. Josh Jacobs and James Cook, two guys that are kind of focal points of their respective offenses, and they're always going to have touchdown upside and be very productive. Saquon Barkley coming off of the bye, he tweaked his hamstring, I think, in that game before the bye, and then they just took him out because they were dominating that game. So we'll see what's up with him this week. Like, obviously, I'm not expecting him to miss a game or anything like that, but in terms of, health and what's his production going to look like, I think it's going to be fine. Like, we have him firmly in this A tier, no problem, and hopefully he can continue to build off of what he did do before he tweaked his hamstring in that game against the Giants. You got Bucky Irving coming back healthy after the bye week as well. I really think he's been the missing piece to this offense. Like, even when Rachaad White was the bell cow there was a notable difference in their offensive efficiency, and I think everybody's going to bounce back here because Bucky is back. It's going to be Bucky, Ibuka's going to come back, and Baker's going to look like how he did before all these injuries happened as well. So I'm excited to see him, and if you can buy him low, still at a discount, I would go for it.
Got a short B tier here for you, starting with Javonte Williams, who, when I needed him the most, the one time, he didn't come through. So obviously a slower week for Javonte this week. He still plays in an offense that most weeks is going to drop 30-plus points per game, and that makes him extremely valuable. He's the bell cow. Bell cow back in an offense that strong is always going to have major fantasy relevance. We both have him around 10. Kyron Williams, Kyron Williams is just steady, low-end running back 1. Very consistent, also on a very good offense. Ashton Jeanty not on such a good offense, but however, you are still starting to see Ashton Jeanty put together some consistency now. This last week against Jacksonville had 19 points. In 4 of his last 5 games, he's had 33, 15, 16, and 19 points. The other game was the 4-point game against Kansas City. Obviously a very good matchup there, where he only actually had 6 carries. 5 targets in his last game for 47 yards, 5 receptions for 47 yards. So you get an extra 10 points from receiving as well.
And
you're starting to like what you see. So yeah, you're starting to like what you see from Ashton Jeanty a lot. So I think it warrants him being in this little baby tier with Kyron and Javonte Williams. But all 3 of these guys are kind of the low-end running back 1s for us here with less questions than the guys in the C tier.
Yeah, at the top of the C tier is going to be Derrick Henry. I know some people might make a stink about this. Why is he not in the tier above? I mean, the reality is we've seen 1.5 really, really good games from Derrick Henry this season. Well, I'll give you 2 really good games from Derrick Henry this season, a 29-pointer and a 19-pointer against Chicago in Week 8. Other than that, it's been inconsistent. It's been up and down. It's been vanilla, and we've talked about his red zone woes. It's not necessarily his fault because when you watch him, he looks like Derrick Henry. He looks like he's always looked, but it's just the amount of times they stack the box against him is ridiculous, and I think that's kind of been hurting him. Quinshon Judkins also in this tier, very similar to Henry. If he doesn't find the end zone, he's going to have a way lower floor, and he's in a really, really bad offense, so I think he can only go so high rest of the season. Avery and I both have him ranked firmly at 14 as a high-end running back 2 rest of the season. Breece Hall and Travis Etienne. Breece Hall has been the definition of boom-bust in the Jets offense. I mean, if you're noticing a trend here, we've basically got a bunch of running backs in poor situations or poor outlooks in terms of consistency. And for Breece, like coming off of the bye, I think the status of like who's going to be the starting quarterback there is up in the air. Tyrod Taylor was supposed to start before the bye week, and then he was injured. So then Fields was starting, even though they expected to start Tyrod. Now Aaron Glenn is non-committal. We don't really know what's going to happen there, and I do think that kind of impacts what we think about Breece Hall depending on who's starting there. Travis Etienne had a bounce back week against the Vegas Raiders, so you do want to take that with a grain of salt. They've got Houston next week, and then the Chargers, Arizona, Tennessee, Indy. Mixed bag of matchups, but a 16-pointer with 22 carries, which is notably higher in terms of work load that we've seen over the last month for ETN. That's a really, really good sign for his usage, so happy to see that. Again, Rico Dowdle, I think, deserves to be in the C tier at this point. We had the question of like, hey, who are we going to rank between Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard? You tell us who it's going to be. Well, Carolina told us who it was going to be, and it's going to be Rico Dowdle. And he's going to continue to have very high upside weeks. In a matchup against Green Bay that was supposed to be pretty unfriendly for his production, he had almost 30 points again. He looks like one of the better running backs in this, like in the non-elite range of starting bell cow running backs. I mean, he looks phenomenal the rest of the season. And Carolina has seemed to kind of find an identity in running the ball first. Jaylen Warren also going to be in this tier. You can't not have Jaylen Warren in this tier because he just continues to have a really high floor. And no, he's not going to have the upside that Rico has, that Henry has, that Quinshawn has, that Brees has. But he does, I mean, he's just demonstrated all season long that he's got a higher floor than most of those guys. So between his receiving work and they just like giving him the ball in the red zone, it's kind of a nice mix of just solid production from Warren most weeks.
All right, let's drop down here to the D tier. We'll start with Amarian Hampton, who he's technically eligible to come off of IR this week, and I don't think it happens. I'm not sure that he comes back off of IR until like week 13 after their bye week.
Yeah, Harbaugh actually just announced that he would be back after the bye at the earliest.
Okay. That's great. Harbaugh, freaking screw the freaking Chargers.
Yeah. Their injuries are awful.
I mean,
they just lost Alt for the whole season.
I would say at that point, then you maybe even talk about putting Hampton at the bottom of this tier.
Yeah, I think that's a fair case.
So let's put him at the bottom.
Because he has a tough playoff schedule too.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is great news, everybody. Let's start with Swifty then. Let's just talk about something else. Swift, I didn't really knock him in my rankings this week. I think that backfield's going to still be a 50-50. It was a 50-50 before Swifty got hurt, and I think it's going to continue to be after Kyle Monungai looks so good. But I do think Swift has a lot of upside in offense that scores a lot of points. Chase Brown, kind of the same thing. You could make an argument for him to be at the top of this tier as well, and maybe even at the bottom of the C tier at this point. And it's less because you're going to get consistent production out of Chase Brown, because I don't think you are. Chicago was just a great matchup and a great game where he had 14 targets. I mean, he out-targeted Jamar Chase in this game. So, that's not happening every week.
That should be a crime.
It is a crime. It is a crime committed by Joe Flacco. I loved him at one point, and now I hate him. But
yeah.
With Brown, you have to rank him here. And the reason he's so appealing is because he does have this 25-point upside, which you've seen the last 2 weeks. And so anybody that has that upside in this ugly range should be ranked accordingly. J.K. Dobbins continues to get the exact same amount of work that he's gotten all year. Now, the difference has, of course, been that he hasn't had a touchdown since week 5, and he has no receiving upside. So games of 4, 9, 14, and 7 points are what you're going to get with a guy that has 0 receiving upside. His floor is inherently going to be lower. You have to rank him accordingly, even though R.J. Harvey has been the more productive back in Denver recently. I think that's large in part due to the fact that he has scored, I think he said five touchdowns on like 15 or 20 touches or something like that. So, I mean, you're not going to chase that level of efficiency with RJ Harvey. And J.K. Dobbins continues to get the majority of the carries there. You don't really feel good about starting either of them at the moment. J.K. Dobbins, you're worried about his ceiling, but R.J. Harvey, you're worried about his floor. And so, and then I'll just mention Hampton again at the end of this tier. Wow, man, I'm bummed to high heavens, and I'm sure you are as well.
So with the F tier, we're going to start with David Montgomery. He actually outproduced Gibbs this week. That happens every once in a while. He's been getting the work that he usually gets. Just depends on if he's going to find the end zone or not. He did find the end zone this week, had that fumble, which, docked his points a little bit in production against Minnesota defense that kind of looked a lot better than they have all season. We expect Monty to be fine rest of season as a flex option. Woody Marks, kind of a true split backfield there between Marks and Nick Chubb this week. We knew Marks was banged up, kind of a game time decision heading into that matchup against Denver, which is a tough one. I do think Marks has higher upside. He's going to have better weeks ahead. We've seen this before where he kind of comes back down to earth and then he has a really good week and then back down. He's just kind of all over the place. Alvin Kamara, most people are going to kind of plummet down the rankings to total irrelevancy. And while I understand the sentiment, I'm just, Avery and I just both are not willing to do it yet. We have him as high end running back 3s at the moment. And I don't think that's like super aggressive or a shot called. I mean, look at the other guys that are in this tier. Kenneth Walker can't get into double digits again, even when he looks, super explosive and super athletic and super fun to watch on the field. It's good for 8 points, against Washington. He hasn't had a double-digit game since week 4. Then you got Tyron Tracy, who just can't fill the shoes that Cam Scadaboo left when his ankle was snapped in half. And shot into a million pieces. But with Tracy, he just isn't going to get the receiving work that you saw like Scadaboo get. So like when you're in a game in a matchup where the Giants are going to be down early and they have to pass the ball a lot, they got a lot of passing down sets. Tracy just isn't necessarily going to show that same upside that Scadaboo has, and he's had 7 and 6 points since Scadaboo has gone down with that injury. So Trey Benson, we're just waiting for him to come back healthy off of IR. We haven't really gotten any indication when he's going to be back from Gannon. He's like, yeah, he's on the right track. Yeah, he's back in meetings. Yeah, he's going to be back soon. Okay, well, is that going to be this week or is that going to be like in 2 weeks? His 21-day practice window is opened. They just haven't activated him off of IR officially, so we'll see what happens this week. And then Aaron Jones looking to be the number 1 guy over Jordan Mason. He just looks better. Want to monitor that AC joint sprain, obviously, but they said it was minor enough that he should be good to go this week. You're obviously going to have that concern of him just getting banged up. He's got a history of that. Got to stay healthy, but the receiving upside is there. He's kind of a nice security blanket for JJ McCarthy. I think he'll be fine rest of the season.
All right, let's do the last 2 tiers here. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt.
No.
And with Jaden Daniels out,
No.
Zach Charbonnet, also now, I'm not even going to spend a lot of time talking about these guys. Kamani Vidal's, looking like a little bit of a better option now that, and I would maybe even raise him up my ranks a little bit now that Hampton's going to be out long
If I knew that Hampton was going to be out that long, I knew it was a possibility, but not that early, I would have ranked Kamani Vidal.
The problem is with Vidal,
like, way higher.
the reason you have to be somewhat conservative with Vidal is because, he played that Dolphins offense, but the offensive line is just completely banged up. He had 3 points against Tennessee.
Yeah.
He's got Pittsburgh, Jacksonville to bye, and then after the bye, Hampton might be back. And so you still have to be a little bit careful there.
Yeah.
Jordan Mason, we obviously had as a sell. We don't love him rest of the season. Ramondre, Tony Pollard, RJ Harvey has continued to kind of be efficient on his touches, but still not getting the volume there. And then the H tier real quick, Rashad White, Bucky's coming back, Travion Henderson, we have ranked 10 spots lower than the rest of the experts. I don't know what they are seeing to suggest that Henderson is going to take over the starting role here. It's not happening. When Ramondre comes back, Ramondre is going to be the starting guy there. Henderson in his,
they hate him.
They just don't like him. They just don't. Even in the game where he was supposed to be the starter, they gave Jennings red zone carries. He had a touchdown. So, I'm just not seeing it. Pacheco's the same thing. Shout out to Bush and Danny for that take. Tyjae Spears. You don't want to start them either. You really don't want to start Tyjae Spears. You don't want to start anybody in the Titans offense. Kenny Gainwell, Kareem Hunt, Bashal Tootin, and Nick Chubb will wrap it up. I can't talk about these guys any longer. Let's go to the wide receiver S tier here, and this is where it gets fun. This is exactly how I have it tiered.
Nice big S tier.
Yeah, I have it. This is how I have it tiered on the side as well. I have a big, ginormous S tier.
Oh, look, that's cute. We've got them all the same.
I know. So yeah, we do have them all the same.
Aww.
So we've got Jamar Chase, obviously 18 points in a game where they scored 50 points. He should have scored more than that, but he's still the wide receiver 1 or 2. JSN, another 20-point game. What a baller. Puka's great, but if he were healthy, he would be the wide receiver 1 by himself.
He can score 22 points in 2 quarters and then be injured.
And then just is out for the rest of that. He played half of the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, just very consistent. CD Lamb, I don't remember how many points did he actually end up with last night. I know he had quite a few catches, but he had 15 on 12 targets. So, yeah. Again, no touchdown for CD Lamb. CD Lamb is he's still, though, when in the games where he's healthy, 18, 20, 22, 14, and 15 points. So it's got extremely high floor. We're just yet to see the elite ceiling from CD Lamb, and we're projecting that it's going to come eventually.
Similar to JJ, just 1 touchdown on the year.
Yeah, and then Rashee Rice, he belongs in this S tier. He's averaging 20-something points per game since he's been back. Now we've seen a 3-game sample size, and he just simply is he's on one of the better offenses in the NFL. He's Patrick Mahomes' favorite target. They're giving him running back snaps multiple times a game at this point. He had a rushing touchdown in this game. He is just a guy that if you have him on your fantasy football team, he is a potential league winner for you this year with the price he was being drafted at, and he belongs in the S tier because he's producing at the level that each of these S tier guys is so far.
That man's going to be a top 6 pick next year in fantasy football.
And he should be.
A tier is going to be Drake London. He had another just signature Drake London week where he was intercepting balls from corners again. 38 points on 14 targets. Since that 4-target game against Minnesota, he's had 8, 10, 16, 10, and 14 targets. And this is the London you wanted to see. And honestly, the production has fluctuated quite a bit. You've had low-end double-digit games with a single-digit game in there against San Fran that you sprinkle in, plus a 25er and a 38-pointer. 25er against Washington as well. This is just... it's so hard to get a grip on what this offense is going to look like on a weekly basis. But the reason we're going to have him at the top of this A tier is look at his matchups for the next few weeks. He's got Indy's secondary. He's got Carolina. He's got New Orleans, and then he's got the cooked Jets, Seattle and Tampa, Arizona. Like, he honestly has a pretty solid rest of the season schedule. I would expect him to kind of maintain this high-end double-digit production. Not 38 points every week, but, probably 15 plus. Jefferson had an awesome touchdown catch. Beyond that, you did see some target volume decrease for every receiving asset in this offense. McCarthy's volume is a concern rest of the season. I mean, you see that those passing attempts go right back down to like 20 to 25 every single game with McCarthy. But Jefferson is the only guy that really can transcend. And even with McCarthy there, the guy who's going to take the hit in terms of like a super low floor is going to be Addison. Jefferson's still going to be fine. Emeka Egbuka back in this tier. Avery and I haven't really done much to his ranking or knocked him because he's had a few slow weeks. There's been a lot of injuries and stuff that they've had to get through, and I think now that they're all coming back healthy after the bye, he's going to be fine and bounce back. Devontae Adams, a lot of people rank lower because he's the number 2 in one of the best offenses in the NFL. And number 2 in one of the best offenses in the NFL is better than a lot of number 1s in crappy offenses, which is why we have him ranked a spot ahead of Garrett Wilson. While we really like Garrett Wilson, his floor is very high because of his target volume. You just never know any given week when he's going to have a stinker because Justin Fields is playing quarterback or Tyrod is, the starting quarterback there, which shouldn't be allowed. Rome Odunze has he had his most disappointing week of the season, a goose egg, straight up in the most productive game of the year in the NFL. So that's very disappointing. When he doesn't find the end zone, he's a little more volatile in terms of production, but it's still a great offense, and he still is more often than not going to get a good amount of volume. Nico Collins honestly he looked just as good with Davis Mills as he did with CJ Stroud. Yep. So he's pretty QB proof, and there's not really any other explosive option in that offense consistently rest of the season for Houston. Their run game is very lackluster. Nico Collins is one of the few bright spots there, so expect him to be pretty solid for the rest of the year.
All right, let's go to the B tier here. There are actually a couple guys that Nathan and I have ranked very differently in this tier that we can talk about. Cortland Sutton's a guy that we've moved down, pretty much demoted a tier. He's just not been consistent this year, and that's kind of been an issue.
Yeah, I moved him down.
So I mean, you just gotta be realistic with what Sutton has been this year. He's kind of just been a step down from what he was last year, which is fine. Jalen Waddle has continued to produce, honestly. So I think he's firmly in this tier as a wide receiver 2 rest this season. Now, Zay Flowers is the next guy in this tier, and Nathan has him at 14. I have him at 20. We actually essentially have Pitty and Flowers flipped, and I'm curious why you're so low on Pitty compared to Flowers, because Pitty is outproducing him by a lot right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that this tier is so big, and honestly, once I got to guys like Devonta Smith and Olave, I was like, I just like the upside of those guys on the weekly basis more than a guy like Pittman, and then someone like Flowers.
I mean, Pittman's putting together 20-point weeks. He didn't have a touchdown yet.
Yeah, I mean,
not to mention,
sure,
the schedule gets worse for Indianapolis after the bye. I think they're going to pass the ball more than they did the first half of the season. And you've seen his target volume in the last 3 games go up 9, 9, and 12 targets. So I just want to put some respect on Michael Pittman because he's the wide receiver 6 on the season.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with Pittman. I think he's in the tier with all these guys.
So I have Pittman at the very top of this tier. Like I think Pittman is being slept on by almost every single person in the fantasy football community at this point. And I'm not just saying that because I have him on my team. Legitimately, he has been very, very good this year. So Flowers, Pittman, we got Pickens in here. Pickens is this is where he projects rest of the season. He's slowly falling from that where he was wide receiver 2. Now he's wide receiver 5. He's going to continue to probably end up as a high-end wide receiver 2 rest of the season. But we do like Pickens in a good offense. Lad McConkey with another mediocre day. He's just going to be hit or miss. When QJ has a good day, Lad might not have a good day. And so it just depends. I think Keenan Allen also had a good day. So it's just that with that offense, good luck guessing. It's Gadsden now too. Good luck figuring it out. It's great for Justin Herbert though, as we'll get to. AJ Brown still hasn't done anything. I have AJ Brown ranked a little bit lower than Nate just because it's tough for me, but it's AJ Brown. So like he could at any point in time have 20, 25 points in a game.
Yeah, I mean before that hamstring injury, he had 14 and 28. Yeah, so it looked more like him.
Obviously, the injury is a concern, but you can't deny his upside. Chris Olave is just steady, consistent. We both have him ranked at 20. And then Devontae Smith in this tier as well. And he is still, I think even after the bye week, probably a high-end wide receiver 2 on the year. And that's a testament to, a couple of things. AJ Brown missing a game or 2. But also, Smitty's target volume has been very good for a lot of this year. He's still wide receiver 17 so far in the year after the bye week. So he's been solid. I think he has more upside on a game-to-game basis than the guys in the C tier, so that's why we moved him up into this tier.
Yeah, C tier is going to be Tet McMillan. Tet has been fine. Again, he's not been like he hasn't been a bust this season at all. He's had some very, very solid games. I mean, multiple double-digit games this season. His floor is anywhere from 6 to 8, 6 to 10 points because he's always going to get a decent amount of volume there. But that offense is kind of just, you don't really know what their game script is going to look like every single week. And right now, what's been working has been Rico Dowdle running the ball, and Rico Dowdle really being the focal point They kind of slow down the game, and they keep these teams that are just more talented than them from getting the ball for so long and getting a ton of opportunities to score a ton of points against them. So when they can just establish the run and kind of abuse you with Rico Dowdle, which I can't believe I'm saying, but like that just kind of is a knock on everyone else in that offense, including Tet. And I just don't know when like the elite level high end upside to get him into that tier with guys like Michael Pittman and Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith and Olave. Like, I just don't know when that's going to happen. T. Higgins coming off a 33-point game. Again, take it with a grain of salt in a matchup where it was one of the most productive games of the year across the board. And Jamar Chase had a slower day for Jamar Chase standards. That's not going to happen every single week. DK Metcalf has been DK Metcalf this season, another stinker against the Colts this week. Then you got BTJ, who actually, BTJ got hurt. We had to move him down our rankings quite a bit because of this. This is the only reason that BTJ is on this tier is he injured his ankle. We don't know how much longer he's going to be out. And he would be ranked a lot higher here if it weren't for that injury because Travis Hunter is out indefinitely. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a nice bounce back game against Dallas. It was pretty expected. Don't you worry, guys. After a nice 20-point game from Marvin Harrison Jr., he will follow that up with a 5-pointer. I guarantee it. Deebo Samuel is in this tier, the bottom of the tier. He might be moving down even more in the coming weeks with no Daniels probably for the foreseeable future. With everybody being banged up there, Terry out, Daniels hurt, Deebo banged up too. Like, he just hasn't been as good as what we saw at the beginning of the season. He's kind of regressed back to what we thought his outlook was kind of going to be this year in Washington's situation, and that was a little more boom bust with some big games when he scores touchdowns, lackluster games when he doesn't.
Moving to the D's tier here, we'll start with Xavier Worthy, who just hasn't had it. I think it's partially because he's hurt. But, I mean, he just doesn't look very good. He's a wide receiver 56 on the year. He's missed 3 games, obviously, but just 6 points is just mediocre. It's very mediocre production for Xavier Worthy. Yeah. We were all looking for that answer of kind of what was he going to do this year after, a hot in the last year without Rashee Rice. I think we kind of got our answer at this point. I think we know what he is at this point. Quentin Johnson, still the wide receiver 19. He had a 15-point game. Still only played 68% of the snaps, so that is somewhat concerning. Still only had 5 targets. His rest of season upside is going to be dependent on if he gets a touchdown or not, which sucks because he was getting a ton of targets earlier in the season, but that seems to have gone away. Stephon Diggs still playing 60% of the snaps as well, but he's third straight game in double digits, and his second straight game with a touchdown. He is also going to be fairly touchdown dependent, as there are a lot of guys in this tier. No exception is Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison had 8 points without a touchdown this week. Only 4 targets in a game where J.J. McCarthy threw the ball how many times?
25 times.
25 times. Again, this is the issue with the Vikings wide receivers at this point. Khalil Shakir is underrated. We mentioned that in the buys video. I love Khalil Shakir. He's the wide receiver 33, and he's actually getting better target volume than all these guys, and he's less touchdown dependent. So if you want a safe option, Shakir's your guy. Wandale, you can make the same argument for. This week, you saw the classic Wandale PPR scam game where he had 11 targets, 9 receptions for 46 yards. So he had 13 points on 11 targets, man. That's insane. But that's what you get from Wandale. And then we had Jameson Williams as a buy last week, and everybody trashes for it. He had 6 targets this week for 66 yards. He had a touchdown. He had 16, almost 17 points this week. He still does have that upside rest of the season, and I do think they're going to try to get him going now a little bit later in the season.
F tier, we'll close it out with the F and the G tier. Keenan Allen has been a lot more boom bust than when you started the season, and now with no Joe Alt, that really does... That's a stinker for everybody on that offense, even all the receiving assets there, because of the protection for Justin Herbert. Herbert looks a lot better and a lot more comfortable when he has at least one of Alt and Slater out there, and now there's neither of them are out there for the rest of the year. Ricky Pearsall, somebody tell me when he's going to be back healthy. I don't know. He's got a PCL sprain that's kept him out for 5 or 6 weeks at this point. This dude can't stay healthy. DJ Moore had a phenomenal game and the most productive game of the year. I would expect DJ Moore to fall back down to earth. Avery and I haven't really bought this, comeback from DJ Moore or anything like that. I don't think this is going to last. Terry McLaurin, Avery and I have him 8 spots apart. I should have Terry ranked way lower because of the Daniels injury, honestly.
He's hurt again.
He's hurt again, re-aggravated that quad injury. Honestly, this is a lost season for Washington. I mentioned this last week, I think, but I mean, when do they just shut down Terry for the year and not risk him being injured?
They might do it at this point because
I think they definitely should, and they probably May.
I love it.
Yeah, Josh Downs has salvaged his weeks with a couple of touchdowns. You're not going to see Daniel Jones throw the ball 50 times every single week, which is also why Downs is not going to be a huge riser, even though he had a 15-pointer with 9 targets against Pittsburgh this week. We'll see what he can do against Atlanta before the bye week heading into week 11. He definitely is schematically still the third option there. I mean, Pierce had 17 points this week too. So Romeo Doubs has been the most consistent receiving option for Green Bay. That's not saying a ton. He's still not ultra reliable, but he's not a bad investment, honestly, right now as a flex option. Chris Godwin, we'll see when he can be back healthy. We haven't really heard much about him, honestly. Is he slated to come back this week? No, we haven't heard anything. So there's been no report about Godwin, whether he's going to be back or not. This is looking like another lost season for him as well. Rashid Shaheed getting some real nice target volume. It's not consistent, but again, very similar to Alec Pierce in an offense where New Orleans is guaranteed to be down pretty much every single game, so that's good for him. And then the G tier, a bunch of guys that you don't want to start. Jennings, Kupp, Myers, DK, Trey Tucker, Calvin Ridley. Parker Washington now is rankable, and he might continue to move up if Brian Thomas misses significant time. He's really the only notable guy in this tier, and then Matthew Golden at the end.
Going to tight end now. S tier, we're going to have Trey McBride and Brock Bowers. McBride, obviously, with another very solid game. He's still the tight end one of the year. And then Bowers ruined my flock season. And so, he came back 43 points. Not going to happen every week. And one game doesn't change his season-long outlook. But a lot of people are trying to dunk on us like, oh, these guys said to sell Brock Bowers. We said if you're a contending team, actually, you're buying Brock Bowers because we told the bad teams to sell Brock Bowers. And I stand by it. I mean, if you're a bad team, you should be streaming tight end. But we didn't tell everybody to sell Brock Bowers. You can try to rewrite history and smear us and whatever. But in reality, again, for teams above 500, we said he was a hold buy. And, I don't know how this dude was hobbled and playing like crap all year and comes back the week after his bye and immediately has 45 points. I have no clue. I don't know why the Jags didn't guard him. I'm just coping. Bowers looked good in that game and was getting the elite target volume he needs. And so if you have Bowers on a winning team, if you've won without Bowers and you still have him, he's going to be great for you the rest of the season. If you bought Bowers from a bad team like you should have before, he's going to be great for you as well. And so Bowers, again, we don't have a vendetta against Bowers, especially for winning teams. He was a great trade target, and he looks good rest of the season. I'll just do the A tier as well.
So literally as you were speaking, Jacoby Myers was just traded to Jacksonville, which I think tells us what we need to know about Travis Hunter's injury, potentially BTJ's, and Parker Washington's outlook as well.
Yeah, they're probably a little bit worried about BTJ's.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's also wheels up for Bowers, by the way.
Yeah. And Jacoby Myers was nothing this year anyway.
Yeah, apparently.
So, very interesting, though, that Jacksonville made that move. They go from mid to mid. That's awesome. That's classic Jacksonville move, poverty franchise. A tier, I'll just go ahead and do this as well. Jake Ferguson, he and Warren both, I'll talk about them together. They both had about 8 points this week. Both did about nothing. I think McBride and Bowers kind of separated themselves from those guys, and so we're going to shrink our S tier. George Kittle, better game. Right? Yeah, Kittle, I think I think obviously this week had 7 points. I think Kittle's upside's unlocked when Brock Purdy is the quarterback in this offense again. Yep. We also have Sam Laporta in this tier as well. Laporta had 21 points. He's the tight end 7 of the year. He's been very solid. And, he just has that 20-point upside because he plays on the Lions. Like, that's literally the appeal of Sam Laporta is the week-to-week upside. So you have him. You hope he has 20 points in the playoffs. That's really where we're at this point.
Yeah, then the B and the C tier. B tier, basically just a step down from all the A tier guys. Gadsden, who I think was solid again.
Yeah, he was
this
solid.
week.
He was. I think he had double-digit points.
He had 5 targets, 11 points again. So that's 4 straight double-digit weeks for Gadsden. He's looking to have one of the higher floors because you just see that consistent target volume, and he's very efficient with it. He's not necessarily touchdown dependent. Travis Kelce, honestly, has had a nice little resurgence in what we would expect to potentially be his last year. He's been very reliable this season. And then you got Dallas Goedert, who's touchdown or bust, Kincaid, who's touchdown or bust, and Harold Fannin, who gets good work, but you definitely would like to see him get touchdowns. Otherwise, it's like going to be a little more shaky there because the offense is so bad. But Fannin and Njoku are kind of the focal points in terms of the passing offense there, which is already so lackluster. But those are the guys, those are receiving assets you want in that offense, and Fannin seems to be the number one guy. C tier, you got some other streamable guys. Pitts is going to be here. Loveland is now rankable. We're going to be very conservative with Loveland's ranking, similar to Gadsden. Let's see this for multiple weeks against non-Cincinnati Bugles defenses.
Yeah.
And then we got Hunter Henry, who's touchdown or bust, Mark Andrews, touchdown or bust, and Njoku, touchdown or bust, Hawkinson, touchdown or bust. Juwan Johnson gets good enough work where he's not touchdown or bust. He can get like 10 to 12 points with like 7 targets any given week, again, because they're down so often and they have to throw the ball all the time.
All right, let me just cover quarterbacks here real quick. The S tier is going to be Allen and Jackson, both the guys with rushing upside. A tier, Mahomes, Hurts, and Drake May. If you have one of those guys, you have your quarterback rest of the season. B tier, Dak, Baker, Herbert. Herbert's the quarterback 2 on the season now. He has been very good, and they're throwing the ball so much, and without Hampton coming back anytime soon, Herbert's going to be a great quarterback rest this season. Yep. Daniel Jones, still kind of steady, even when in a game where he had like 5 turnovers, he had 17 points. And so Jackson Dart, also, since he's been the starter, has been very fantasy productive and has a lot of rushing upside. Caleb Williams had a bounce-back game. He's been the quarterback 10 so far on the year. And then Bosif Nix, again, stringing together some decent games here recently. He's just more hit or miss than he was last year. The C tier, Love, Darnold, Goff, and Stafford are your plug-and-play guys on bye weeks. And then the D tier, the guys you're really only playing if you have to. Murray, Purdy, Penix, Lawrence, Flacco, Smith, Stroud, Rodgers, and Tua. Again, at the quarterback position, we have pretty much figured out this position at this point of the year. So, again, if you enjoy the video, drop a like, make sure you're subscribed. You can let us know what we should change in our rest of season rankings. Again, we try to compare ourselves to a lot of different places to make sure we're not like totally off base about something. But let us know, of course, do we have too high or too low in the comments. We appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you're subbed so we can get to 40K by the end of the year. You guys have been with us, and we appreciate you guys so much. We will have our weekly matchups out tomorrow, so make sure you got your noties on. We'll have that video out, help you set your lineups for this week. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you here soon.